OnePlus is stepping into the big leagues with the OnePlus 8 and OnePlus 8 Pro, and I've got reviews of both of these devices next. Hands on Tech is brought to you from LastPass Studios. Keeping passwords on notes or spreadsheets doesn't work anymore. LastPass easily keeps track and creates unique passwords for every site you use. Visit lastpass.com/twit.
This is Twit.
This episode of Hands on Tech is brought to you by FreshBooks, the #1 accounting software in the cloud for self-employed professionals and their teams. Try it for free for 30 days at freshbooks.com/hot. I am a huge OnePlus fan. There, I admitted it. And I've been admitting it for years. They first came to the scene years ago as kind of a scrappy upstart that was releasing high-quality hardware at mid-range prices. And every year, that price range has crept up, but so has the quality of the hardware. Well, this year, with the OnePlus 8 and OnePlus 8 Pro, they're stepping into the big leagues. Now, what does that even mean? Well, it basically means that OnePlus is stopping its approach of saying, hey, we've got really nice phones that are a lot less expensive than the other phones. They're stepping into the premium market, which means their price is creeping up to right around $1,000. Expensive by anyone's account. Are they worth it? Let's take a look and find out. Let's take a look at first at what these phones actually share between the two. Both of them have a Snapdragon 865 with 5G capability, 8 and 12 gig memory options, 128 and 256 gig storage options. They both have a hole punch selfie camera on the front, no more pop-up camera that they had on the 7 Pro. And there's an in-display fingerprint sensor for authentication. That's what they share. But then they also have a lot of difference between the 8 and the 8 Pro. Starting with the OnePlus 8, it has a 90 Hz refresh on the display. The display itself is a 6.55-inch 1080p AMOLED display. It has a triple camera system on the back, which I'll talk about, and carrier models are IP68 certified, but unlocked ones aren't officially, and that's kind of one. I don't think there's any difference between the two. I think just they're paying for the certification through the carriers, and outside of the carriers for the unlocked version, they're not paying for that certification. It's probably just the same. As far as the OnePlus 8 Pro is concerned, it has a 120 Hz refresh rate on the 6.78-inch 1440p AMOLED display, and it looks amazing in use. 30-watt wireless charging. Yes, 30 watts at a wireless charge, which I'll talk about. Wireless reverse charging, so you could top off your headphones by setting it on the phone. Quad camera system on the back, and officially it is rated IP68, so water and dust resistance, and that's a great thing to finally have in OnePlus phones. What neither of them have are headphone jacks. You're not going to find a headphone jack on here anymore. Any sort of expandable storage, so keep that in mind when you're buying one of these to get the storage that you need. We're always waiting for an always-on display from OnePlus. You're not going to see it in either of these phones, but OnePlus does say that that's coming soon. And neither, as I said, has a pop-out selfie camera, which some people are bummed about. It was a neat gimmick, a neat function, but I'm not that sad that it's gone. All right, so let's take a look at the OnePlus 8 first of all, which is this phone right here. This starts $699 to $799 if you get fully decked out with memory and storage. The design looks almost identical to the OnePlus 7 Pro, minus, of course, the pop-out camera. It has a nice curved glass display. It's a little steeper than last year, I'd say. Pretty flawless display, I have to say. Ample brightness, although outside it can be a little dim, but nice clarity, rich colors, 90 Hertz on the refresh goes far, I think, to smoothen out the experience of Android and what OnePlus is doing here. And I love the color scheme on the back. It definitely looks a little better in person than it does in these shots. But yes, it picks up fingerprints like crazy. As for performance, this is the 12 gig variant that I have, and it flies exactly like it should. OS operations are swift, they're speedy. Gaming is, of course, no sweat on this device. Up with the best of the best, I'd say, although it does get a little warm, especially if you're pushing the hardware with a nice game that's running for a while. And, so just keep that in mind. It's going to heat up a little bit. As for the battery performance, this has a 4,300 milliamp hour battery. I think very ample in my at-home use, which is kind of the only thing I have to compare to right now. We're kind of all at home right now. So I was on Wi-Fi most of the time. It's hard to know whether if I was living my life outside of my house, like I normally would on mobile networks, how the battery life would survive on this. But my experience here at the house was pretty nice. It also supports 30-watt warp charge, but has to be plugged. It does not support the wireless, like I said, but 30 watts is a really fast charge up. So you can top it off pretty quickly. Just remember to use OnePlus's charging brick and their charging cable. Otherwise you won't get those speed benefits. As for the camera system on the OnePlus 8, it has a 48 megapixel main camera, which gets great images out of the box, clear shots, I'd say particularly in good light. And then of course, if you're taking in any night shots, it does have a night mode. OnePlus has built a night mode in there, and those shots aren't half bad on this device either. It also has a 16 megapixel ultra wide, and I'd say the wide angle shots on this phone are nice, minimal distortion on the edges, which is something that I look for. I really appreciate having an ultra wide on this system. It also has a 2 megapixel dedicated macro, and I'm a huge fan of a macro camera. I just think they're really creative. Overall, these macro shots are kind of mediocre, I would say. 2 megapixels is not a whole lot. It's a nice feature to have, so you might turn to it and create some good shots. Don't get me wrong. It's just kind of muddy at times. So overall, the OnePlus 8, just because it's a lesser model than the 8 Pro doesn't mean a whole lot here. You're going to save a couple of $100. You're going to get a lot of the features, but not all of the whiz-bang features that I'm going to talk about in a second. A really great choice for fans of OnePlus's feature-rich, but at a kind of budget price point approach. And I don't know that you can necessarily call $799 a budget price point, but there you go. It's the nice option between the two to take a look at if you want to save some dollars. This episode of Hands on Tech is brought to you by FreshBooks. They make it easy to stay in the black without seeing red. As a small business owner, it's easy to invoice, expense, and manage your books. You can enable online payments to make it easier for them to pay you, get paid 2 times faster, and receive notifications when clients open invoices, and so much more. Visit freshbooks.com/hot and enter Hands on Tech in the How Did You Hear About Us section to receive 30 days free. That's freshbooks.com/hot. And for a limited time, FreshBooks is offering 50% off your first 3 months when you sign up for a paid plan. For new customers only, and offers cannot be combined. All right, so second up, let's take a look at the OnePlus 8 Pro. This starts at $899 all the way up to $999, depending on how you have it spec'd. I have the $999 version. Design-wise, it's beautifully frosted. It's got this nice frosty light blue color, which actually repels fingerprints as opposed to the OnePlus 8. Again, very similar in design to the OnePlus 7 Pro in many ways. The camera bump, though, is very steep on this phone. It's a little wonky and balanced. If you set it on a tabletop, it's going to rock a lot back and forth, so keep that in mind. The top ridge has an indentation, so if you take a look at the very top, you'll see it's indented in there. It's a nice little style point, I'd say, and it kind of stands out a little bit. The display, I mean, two syllables, gorgeous. It is amazing, possibly the best that I've seen. And what's cool here is, yes, it's 120 hertz refresh rate. Yes, it is 1440p. And unlike what Samsung does with their Galaxy Ultra, their S20 Galaxy Ultra, OnePlus is allowing you to run this at full 120 hertz and full 1440p mode, both at the same time. Battery be damned. And Samsung doesn't allow you to do this. They force, on 120 hertz, they force the resolution down to 1080p. So you can go all out on the OnePlus 8 Pro. And when you do, your eyes will be spoiled. So super big warning about that. You won't want to turn to a display that doesn't have that once you do. Things are just buttery, liquid, and awesome. Also very bright outdoors. They've increased the brightness on the OnePlus 8 Pro, and it really shines outside. Performance-wise, I mean, the 8 and the 8 Pro perform top of class together. Really, when you're talking about internals, most things are identical. The 8 Pro does have LPDDR5 RAM, which has 1.5 times faster data transfer speed than the 8's LPDDR4X RAM. But I'd say it's super hard for me to actually tell the difference. So, and maybe you're more attuned to that and you can take a look for that. OS level, gaming level, all of it flies. And then, of course, One UI is just a really great UI. It's one of my favorites of the Android skins out there. OnePlus has done a really good job of adding meaningful improvements to Android through their One UI without just kind of littering it with a bunch of cruft. So I think they've done a great job there. It's very balanced. Battery-wise, it has a 4510 milliamp hour battery, excellent battery life, but do be cautioned when you go up to 120 hertz, 1440p modes. It's going to impact your battery considerably, even though you're going to want to run in it because it's just beautiful. It looks great and feels great. It's going to impact your battery, and it definitely does. So you're going to want to ramp that down. Now, thankfully, Warp Charge 30 saves the day. And in this case, it supports the Warp Charge 30 wireless charger. This is a very specially made for this phone wireless charger that OnePlus sells. They have a charging pad version for $70, and then they have this one for $80. It has a fan on the back to cool the phone while it's charging, because it's doing a lot while it's charging on this wireless pad. And it non-removable cord that's actually pretty short. So you might have a hard time like fitting this in certain places. But overall, if you've got the OnePlus 8 Pro and you love wireless charging, you are not going to be disappointed with this thing. It charges it super fast. As far as the camera system, 48 megapixel main, down to 12 megapixel photos, but it does have a larger sensor than the one in the 8. Overall, much improved over previous models of OnePlus phones. Not quite at the level of the Pixel 4, but definitely getting closer, which is more than I've been able to say about OnePlus cameras ever. Definitely in the upper tier, though, just kind of right outside of it. It's like they keep inching closer, which is nice. I got some great shots out of this, though. 48 megapixel ultra wide that couples as the macro, and I gotta say, the macro on this device is amazing. I got some really, really cool close-up shots, and it's just a really creative tool that I love to turn to. So I love that they're doubling down on that. 8 megapixel 3x hybrid telephoto zoom. The max zoom, by the way, is 30x. You're not going to want to use the 30x, but the 3x telephoto actually looks pretty solid. I really liked what I got out of that. And finally, there's a fourth lens here. It's a 5 megapixel color filter meant for kind of strange color effects and stuff. They only really have one filter in the OS right now that's tailored to this color filter. It confuses me. It seems like a waste of hardware, a waste of cost. But I will say that a couple of the shots that I got of some trees and outdoors look really cool. It kind of makes them look like they're all snowy and stuff. Overall, this is OnePlus as a premium player. And I'm really happy to see them just kind of step up and say, hey, you know what? We want to be taken seriously with everyone else, because I think it's a look that looks good on them. And I'm really happy to be able to recommend the OnePlus 8 and the OnePlus 8 Pro, because I think they live up to their expectations. They're not going to, get 100% of everything right. Again, there's kind of a few things, where they could improve. The camera in particular could keep improving, but overall, they're giving you a heck of a lot of value for the cost. And I love seeing them improve, and I can't wait to see what they come up with next. I'm Jason Howell. I review hardware, Android, and otherwise all over the Twit network, but check me out on All About Android at twit.tv/AAA. You'll find a whole lot more like this.
Keep up with all the hottest tech news and gadgets. Visit twit.tv. There you'll be able to find and subscribe to all our tech shows. Thanks for watching Hands on Tech.